ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Roundtable bonus. I'm so excited about this because I get to talk to some of my favorite people, and you get to check it out right here on YouTube or on Facebook. Hi, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon, and welcome to the Roundtable bonus. Today, we have a really fun, special show. I can't wait to tell you about it. You know, I've always been saying that the best theater, you know, you got to come to New York and see the theater. It's all good. And well, it's not all good. And Neil DiStalfo is here, and I can't wait for you to hear more about Mr. Miss America. Hope you're all doing well. It's about a beauty pageant. Do you have any interests or stories about growing up in beauty pageants? Well, he's a pageant. Beauty is, I guess you'll hear more in a minute with Neil, but I had so much fun. It's at the Rattlesnake, and you definitely need to check this show out. My thoughts about beauty pageants, I used to watch them only for the talent portion. Only for the talent portion, right? Well, Mr. Miss America is playing, and wait till you see the talent portion. Wait till you see the talent portion of Derek Taylor. However it is. Yeah, it's really a blast. Don't want to miss this one. Take a peek, and then we're going to talk with the creator.
Y'all, it's Derek Taylor here, approaching the stage door of Broadway's The Music Man, looking to have a visit with my very close personal friends, Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster. Come along! Oh my gosh, it's Broadway's Sutton Foster. Hi, Sutton girl, how are you? Okay, talk to you later. Okay, well now I'm nervous. We're waiting at the stage door for Sutton Foster and Hugh Jackman. Okay, well here we go. Let's see. Hi, Hugh! Yes, Mr. Miss Smithsville.
I walked past you this morning.
No, you didn't.
Back through your tape, you can see me behind you.
Stop it! Thank you, Hugh. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, any words of advice for someone who's making their Broadway debut? Maybe they're a little nervous and unsure. How do you handle that?
Excitement is the same word as nervous, and it's you only get it once, so have the time of your life and fly.
We heard it here, folks. Yes, Hugh Jackman. Thank you. Well, that was my good personal friend, Hugh Jackman, giving me advice at the stage door of The Music Man on how best to impress the judges when I come to Broadway / off-Broadway this summer in Mr. Miss America. I'm never washing my face again. Well, y'all, this has been Derek Taylor, and I can truly tell you this has been one of the greatest days of my life in the concrete jungle where dreams are made of, as my other close personal friend Alicia Keys might say. Thank y'all for spending the day with me, and I hope to see y'all this summer at Mr. Miss America. Who's coming out of here? Who's coming out of here? Who's coming out of here? I don't know.
All right, as I've been saying every single week, some of the most creative art and work out there in the city and in theater today is in off-Broadway. I'm going to get in trouble. We don't need all the remakes of all of the movies and all of that. We need some original works. And I went and saw a show last week, and the second I left, I thought to myself, I have to talk to this next performer. Neil DiStalfo is here. You have to catch him before August 7th. I can't wait to talk about how did you come up with this idea? How did you come up? Did you see the terror about your last name right before I said it? It was a moment.
No, I didn't. I didn't clock it at all. It was perfection. It was exactly as my ancestors imagined it would be said.
Neil, you're a little Italian Scorpio like me.
Oh, really?
Don't let this crazy last name fool you. My mom is Rosa Antonia DiMeglio. So
D-I-M DiMeglio?
Yeah. So I'm a half little guinea from New Jersey. That's
love it. I'm only my last name would make you think that I'm 100%, but I'm only half as well. So
2 halves. Here you go. 1 whole Italian.
There you go.
Neil, how I had so much fun. Congratulations on the reviews. Congratulations on what everyone is saying. They say you're dazzling. They say that they love your writing. I love your writing. Can you tell everybody who hasn't gotten a chance to see it yet what a little bit about Mr. Miss America is about?
Yes. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to chat. So, Mr. Miss America is a one person play in which I play Derek Tyler Taylor, who is competing to become the first ever Mr. Miss Southwestern Virginia. And so the play is the 86th annual Miss Southwestern Virginia pageant. And I take our audience through that pageant. So the audience will experience the on-stage performances. You'll only see me, but you'll see the character compete in swimsuit and talent and question and answer. And then the character will take you off stage and really confides in the audience as his imaginary friends, support system, the folks that he has sort of brought with him to the pageant.
And it's a trip. It's a journey.
It's a trip. It's a journey, yeah.
How did this idea, and if you want to get your tickets, you can visit afo.nyc. Make sure you get your tickets. It's till August 7th. Look, even the artwork is fun. Look at this.
So look at Robert, the number of teeth in my head that are visible. Unreal.
I mean, that if those are your natural teeth, then that's its talent on its own.
Yes.
How did this idea? Okay, backstory for a moment. You're a classically trained actor. I've looked you up. You're Shakespeare. Like you are ready to, do a sonnet and I don't know all of the. But you're known and kind of your what's the word? You're comedian. You're improv. Your comedic writing. All of that stuff. And as a fellow actor, I sometimes say, comedy is not easy. Comedy is on ideas. It's based on lots of everyone. It's subjective. So where did this idea and this journey to come up with this character come from?
It's such a great question because it's been a while now. I mean, the first reading of this play was in the summer of 2017. So it's been about 5 years. So when I think back on sort of the way it developed, it started with the character. As you said, I come from like a classical training, but I have in the last number of years started to get into character work and sketch, and characters were always sort of my favorite thing anyway. I was doing Shakespeare, but I was always coming in as like the weird, I'd have one scene and the director would just be like, just sort of do whatever you want, I guess. Your character could be cut for time, so it doesn't matter. So really, the idea for the play, I mean, I love beauty pageants, or we would call them pageants now. We've sort of dropped the beauty from the title because they're meant to be a little bit more well-rounded. So pageants, especially as they've been represented in like film, Miss Congeniality, Drop Dead Gorgeous is probably the most direct reference here. This idea of being from a small town or a place where your dreams might be larger than what is expected of you. And as a gay person, my way in was really about someone who wants to pursue something, but doesn't necessarily feel entitled to their dream. And the amazing thing about this character, Derek, is he sort of reconciles that for himself very early on. He is born into this place where there are sort of no representations of queer people. It's very heteronormative and repressive. And he decides to be himself, which he says is just this fabulous, gangly little unicorn, and experiences a lot of bigotry and folks trying to tell him that's maybe not the way to be. And then he sees this pageant, which is, some folks have been like, well, why was it the pageant that resonated with him? And I think the thing is, these were the girls from the same place as him, and they were just doing what they felt called to do. And his dream is very specific to the Miss Southwestern Virginia pageant. He would love to be Miss Virginia or Miss America, but truly it is just about being appreciated and respected by the folks that are around him. And that, I think, is the real beauty of sort of these local pageants and local talent shows or star searches or whatever you have. And so once I sort of hooked into that objective for the character, and his sort of determination to and courage to really just be himself, then we were just sort of figuring out like, okay, well, it's a pageant, so like let's have fun. It's also very like it's comedic, it's super queer, so let's figure out like there's a lot of big camp elements in, like, we don't want to give the talent portion away, but it is fabulous and gay, and you know, the theater fans will love it, I hope. So yeah, we were sort of off to the races from there.
Well, that's what's fun. I mean, you have all of the funny, fun, campy, over the top elements, but there's a real heart. The character you've created has a real heart and is, for lack of a better word, very, very brave. It's a very brave, you know, he kind of knows who he is no matter what in the community. Because I think sometimes, for me at least, growing up in the tri-state area and living in areas where queer, while there's still a lot of oppression and a fight to be had, you're talking about an area that is not the epicenter of queer culture, is where this character comes from. So it's so interesting to see his take on it, and it's fun, it's original, it's a tour de force by you. I wanted to ask you a nerdy actor question about this. What backstory when you wrote this? How do you approach this character in the writing? Do you sit and think about, you talked about an objective. Do you sit and think, do you know about him? Do you do all the back work? What is your approach to playing him?
That's such a great question, and it's one that has sort of like I'm so glad that I'm glad and I'm not that I've had such a long development process. We were supposed to do this in 2020, and then something happened called the pandemic. But having had all this time with him, there are elements of backstory when we're sort of figuring out what keeps Derek moving through the pageant, because he does encounter some real bumps in the road. And so we have his origin story, and that's super fun, you know, as a writer, but also as a performer. You know, I you know, I'd be curious to hear your process, but depending on the play and the role, sometimes it's like, yeah, cool, I want to figure out like what were they like as a little kid, but sometimes it's not necessarily helpful and not vital, and if you don't have time, you don't have to. I think with this one, because his childhood was such a part of what keeps him moving through the pageant, and also what he hopes, what's connected to his objective as far as what he hopes to pass on by having been in this pageant. I did want to spend some time thinking about where he grew up and who his influences were. There are so many cultural references in the show,
Yes.
right? And a lot of them are queer specific. Some of them are specific to his age and that sort of demographic. But so part of it was figuring out like, okay, well, he was raised by his grandmother, and he didn't have a ton of access to technology and mainstream culture, certainly not queer culture. So what were the little things that he was picking up on? And who were the people that were inspiring him? And then I should also say, like, the final piece of this, I had written it, and also I'm not from Virginia, I'm from Long Island. And so in doing all my research was talking to a lot of folks from the area. And then the final piece was actually going down and spending some time there. I actually made it down to Roanoke, Virginia for their Pride. And so was able to spend some time at their gay bar and in their queer spaces and speak to a lot of queer folks in that town specifically, and also in the surrounding towns. And so understanding what it means, or a version of what it means to be a queer person in these places, and to your point, like the courage that a young person might need to call upon to put themselves out there in the way that Derek does. It was helpful to meet those folks to be able to see that.
That is so, I think, so valuable. Like I said, I'm from Jersey. You're from Long Island. It's almost the same thing. And and of course it takes courage to be out and to be a queer person in anywhere, to talk to families, friends, acceptance. People are bullied and picked on all the time. I can't imagine, in some, I don't want to say repressive areas, but some areas where it's not as acceptable or there's not as much of a culture there, to come out. So to be there is fascinating. To your point about process, I'm a Meisner student. I went to William Esper. I went later in life. I used to get in trouble in acting school. You're an adjunct professor. You teach theater, at Pace University. I was the person who someone would give me pages and pages and pages of backstory, and they'd ask me my backstory, and I'd be like, I'm a doctor, and they'd be like, well, wow. Because there's something liberating about, maybe it's a theater thing, liberating about just jumping into something and living the behavior. When did your approach to comedy? I mean, you've done it across the board, from improv and sketches to like everything that has to do with it. When was that decision that comedy is kind of where you live in your bones as a performer?
I mean, I will tell you that when I was coming out of drama school, I said I want to be a really serious actor. I was like, I did for showcase, we had a showcase, and I did a couple of scenes, and they were varying degrees of comedy. But there was definitely, we got some laughs, and so in taking some meetings after, everyone just spoke to me about comedy, and I was like, no, I want to do really serious acting. And people were just sort of like, okay, not saying that you can't do that, but you maybe are missing this whole thing that, I don't know if they were like, this is where you're going to work, or this is what you would enjoy. Hopefully the two, which is sort of what's happening for me now, which I'm so grateful for. So I resisted it for a long time, and then it was really just sort of like me sort of throwing up my hands and being like, and also coming to this idea of what do I want to make, and my way into everything, even really challenging aspects of story, is comedy. I think that it's the way we're best able to digest things. I come from a family of, my big Italian family. Everyone was doing characters around, the table, and that really was the way that storytelling occurred. Was like, I have this uncle who, like, the number of characters he has, it's no surprise that I sort of ended up doing sketch, because it's just so fun to try to inhabit something. And I think where I started to really hook into what I enjoy is coming from this place of, this is a real person. There are real circumstances, and we don't need to beat anyone over the head with the difficulties, because it's very likely that this person is moving through this with all of the devices that they have access to, which in the case of a character like Derek, he's really funny. Like, he spent a lot of time alone figuring out how to make himself laugh and entertain himself, which I think, like, queer people especially can relate to that. Like, before we find our community, it's a lot of just figuring out, like, I don't quite know why this, like, Janet Jackson music video is really resonating with me, but I'm going to build a whole world here. And I think he lived in his imagination a lot. And so I think that for me, character is always where I feel most comfortable. And then that way too, like, the scary part of comedy is what happens if you don't get a laugh, right? And when I feel really connected to the character in those circumstances, it actually doesn't matter. And hopefully I feel able to navigate those situations even without getting a laugh, or when my expectations are broken,
Well, it's such a well-rounded, it's not a one-dimensional character. It's very well-rounded. Your writing and your performance really does, it shines through. Janet Jackson video, that's funny stuff. I was kind of a Whitney / Liza. I was a little more sequiny. What is your writing process? How do you've written a short films, you've written a pilot, you've written other theater pieces. Are you someone who sets hours? Are you someone who is when it inspires you? How do you, for any aspiring writer out there, how do you tackle the task of writing?
Oh my God, by truly any means necessary. And just like some days just being like, please, I'll sit here, please, something happen. I love structure. So I am someone who will put like, my goal is 2 hours every day in front of the computer where, I once I have sort of figured out what I want to do, like in the case of Mr. and Miss America, once I was like, oh, great, this is the story that I want to tell. Um, it then sort of cruises, I think, as long as I also find really helpful to have in place a collaborator, an editor, a writing group, something where you feel like, okay, well, one, there's a little bit of accountability built in, but also um, if I don't have all the answers, I don't have to come up with what's perfect. I just have to come up with whatever gets me to the next moment, and then I'll flag it and say to someone like, hey, here's the question that I have about this. Um, and I think it's in the discovery phase where there's so many stories that could be told and so many things that I want to do and characters I want to explore and worlds and all that stuff, that it's in the beginning phase where I'm like, okay, I've got these 12 ideas. What am I going to do with these? And also figuring out like, because I do characters as well in short of like in short things. So whether that's, if I find a character and I'm like, oh, well, this really feels more like a 60-second, video for Instagram. So let's do that versus, something that ends up happening with Mr. Miss America where it's like, oh, so this is like a whole thing. And then we got to figure out what to do with that versus like, oh, this is a TV pilot. And I'm still figuring out like, Mr. Miss America is my first produced play. And I still don't know like really what my process is and also how to differentiate between the worlds for all these sorts of stories and characters. Yeah.
Fascinating question. Do you approach it differently? I mean, do you feel like writing for stage is a different style than obviously television or a little short? And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that at least from what I've gleaned and again, like I've not yet worked on a professional TV show or anything, but TV feels much more oriented in plot. You've really got to understand and depending on the where you are and all that sort of stuff, but feels like story is really important. Um, and characters are essential. And what I want to make will always be character driven, whether it's drama or comedy, but feels like figuring out the story beats and understanding the plot is sort of the groundwork that needs to be in place. You can have really lovely characters and really fun dialogue, but ultimately, like, if it's not a compelling story, I don't think it's really going to progress in TV. And not to say that it would in theater, but I think that there are times when in theater, I've had a really great time just being with a given character or set of characters. And it doesn't matter that it's not the most important day of these people's lives, but it is a moment in time that I'm excited to be there, and I just want to experience something that feels authentic and human.
Yes, absolutely. And fine, Neil, you've just guilted me into the next time one of my friends say I have a reading and can you come and read? Fine.
Every time, Robert, you have to say yes every time.
Fine. But you have you don't sell yourself short. Maybe you've taken and checked this out, tuning the news on Paramount Plus.
Yay!
It is your voices. I mean, your character. So I mean, this is the world. How did this? You have a lot of collaborative pieces with Stephen Colbert. If you don't mind for a second, how did tuning the news and all of that stuff come to be? Before I steal you for a few more minutes.
Stephen is an old personal friend. No, I'm kidding. Well, that was sort of, tuning out the news was an audition process. when I was a house performer at the Upright Citizens Brigade here in New York, and some auditions came through, and I went in on that to the late night offices, and that audition process was one of the first times where I was like, oh, the number of things that are overlapping here as far as things I love to do. It's a political show. I was a political science major in college. It's a sketch show. God, okay, the number of things in common. It's a sketch show, meaning like it's really character driven and based, but it's partially improvised because the characters on the show interview real world guests like congresspersons and governors and, you know, Rob Reiner, like whoever we sort of can, to comment on the day's news. So, and then the audition process really was just like they would show us an image and be like, okay, just do something here. And so it was, who is the character that I want to explore? It was before we even had the audition process, before there were even animated images of the characters. So we were just sort of doing, and it was like these great, like, if you're familiar with like Meg Stalter is on the show, and Z-Way was on season 1, and like Jack Bensinger, like just these like really brilliant comedians. And so we then started to work on that during the pandemic. Was truly one of the only jobs that I think was still available. They sent us computers and recording equipment and all that stuff, and all the interviews happened over Zoom. And it was just all of us sort of figuring out how to make this work. And the show was a daily show, so it was getting animated overnight and then being released the next day. So truly wild. And now it feels, so we're moving to Comedy Central for season 3 that'll start in the fall, and it'll be just a weekly half-hour show. And now I've got these characters that I'm sort of comfortable with, but like, who knows, maybe I'll do someone new for this next season. And then I'm so grateful to just have been working with these folks where, you know, Stephen and the creators have a bunch of other things. And so they'll call me and say, do you have an Anthony Fauci? And I'll be like, yeah, sure. And then I'll, you know, audition like everyone else. But I am grateful that I've sort of landed with some folks that seem to understand or be excited by what could come out of my mouth, especially vocally, because that's so fun. You don't have to worry about like, well, I don't look like Anthony Fauci, although another paisan from the tri-state.
Yes,
but
sure.
you know, I'm grateful that like, although vocally that was very hard. Before he got vocal surgery, he was so here, you know, and that was very hard.
Neil, really, I mean this with all humility. The world is your oyster. Like, we're watching you. You're about to jump off. You watch it. In a month, people will not return anyone's messages. He will not. It's coming. It's already.
I mean, you and my mother are saying that, Robert. So thank you.
No, that's all that you need is your mother, not me.
Oh my God! Don't tell her that. She's gonna be like, "See,
where is your mother? Is she still in Long Island?"
Yes.
Did they love the show?
Yes, she's come to the show twice. She's basically like, I want to be there every night. I said, no, you can come for closing. But she'll watch this. So, you know, hi, Mom. Her name's Joni.
Hi, Joni.
Exactly.
Well, listen, my little Italian family, I can tell if I'm in a theater piece, a musical theater piece, especially growing up, I could tell how much they liked it because they'd come to opening night, and if they bought tickets for another show, they liked it. If they said that was good and then they never came back for the run, I knew like this is kind of sucks.
Yeah. Same page there.
Everyone, you can go. And you can go to afo.nyc and get tickets. Of course, we want you to buy premium, you know, $100 tickets. But theater is not accessible to everybody, so you can get tickets for as low as $10. It's literally why it's for everyone. That's the whole point of this organization. So you can get your $10 tickets. You can see the show. It's running until August 7th. You do not want to miss it. You better jump on top of it before it goes somewhere else, and it does, and more happens because this is not the end of Mr. Miss America. I can say that for sure. Neil, you're a talent and you're a pleasure, and it was an honor to chat with you today.
What a delight. Thank you so much for having me.
How fun is that? Well, join me every week. We have some bonus episodes. We have some bonus excitement. We are always live every single Thursday night. You don't want to miss us at the Roundtable. We have big shows coming up every single week. Thank you so much to the Press Room NYC for putting this all together. And thank you so much to Neil. He's my paisan from Long Island. Another little half Italian boy like me. Till next time, everybody. Thanks for being here.